Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Moonlighters Club. My name is Joel Edwards, your host. For those of you who may not know this, I am located in a basement. I used to have the top floor as my office. We had a daughter. I got pushed to the minor leagues. I'm in a basement, so it's kind of dark. You see stairs here. I don't know. I just feel like it's just me in this dark setting. This is not on purpose. I would like to do this somewhere else where there's sun and plants and life. But I'm just looking at the background right now while I'm talking to you. I'm like, oh my god, I'm in a dungeon. So I just wanted to get that out the way. But anyway, another episode, another valued guest. At this point, I'd like you to introduce yourself, your name, your company, and maybe a description of it.
Hey, I am Delshan Baker. I am the founder and CEO of Endeavor TBD. We are what I like to call an operations firm for the socially vested. So if you have a purpose beyond profit, we will ops you. If you don't, we won't. And so that's everything that's behind the business. So any of the infrastructure, people, talent, IT, all of that stuff. I like to say anything that you would need to do, whether you were selling umbrellas or whether you were trying to save the world, but only for organizations that are trying to do good.
What was that tagline you said? You said purpose with your purpose.
A purpose beyond profit. The people that I want to work with doing the things that, I want to do.
Where are you from originally?
So I'm from Baltimore. Spent some time. I'm a Stanford graduate, so I did my undergrad out in Cali. I lived in New York to up in Harlem for 4.5 years. Took a sojourn to Barcelona for 2 months, which is a whole nother story. But I'm a big proponent in gaps and breaks and, getting out in the world. And then found my way back to Baltimore. Baltimore is my hometown, but found my way back here. And I'm kind of a Baltimore lover. So I like everything about the city. I like our kitsch. I like our arts. I like our other stuff too.
It's one of my favorite cities. I grew up in Boston originally. I love it. I like the fact that you say Baltimore like me. I can't say Baltimore. Like I can't. I don't have that in me. But you still have the accent.
It just really depends on what neighborhood you're from, but I'm a good Baltimore. I like to say all of the syllables.
What you went to school for at Stanford? Is that related to what you're doing now?
It is not. I mean, it is and it's not, right? So I went to Stanford to be a computer scientist. I was an engineer. I was really smart in high school. I think I was one of the like 50 black people that I think they fly around to see all of these kind of Ivy League schools. Anyway, I started as an engineer and didn't actually do that well, and ended up leaving school, coming back, and I've always drawn. I'm a painter, I'm a sketcher, and ended up changing my major to studio art. So I actually have an art degree from Stanford. Painted my way out of college. I'm a terrible student. I was a terrible student. I am a terrible student still.
Hey, you're killing it now, which is that's a good shout out to the art degrees because when people would take those degrees, parents would get upset, teachers would start yelling. But it's good to see. Hey, it can work out. You can get an art degree and move on. That's what I like to see. Um, Also, I went to school later. My degree's in entrepreneurship, which I liked, but business is boring especially in a college atmosphere. As someone who took a lot of like, I don't. If I could do it all again, I wouldn't. I don't think I'd do the same thing again. I like just being in accounting when people are having all these debates and talks about all these different. It's like college is the time where you really expand your mind. When you're in school, if you're like, nah, I just want to make money. Those are the most plain classes ever. Like I don't know. I don't find any. This is just me. I don't find any of it fun. I'm saying it's necessary. I'm glad I did it, but I do think there's for me much more value in the creative side of college that I would do it 1,000 times over.
Yeah, I totally agree. I do have a business degree, so I did end up going back to school, kind of dragged myself back there. I was in a leadership development program. I did the MBA at Johns Hopkins, which is really, really helpful if we want to talk about how you use uh, the networks and education as stamps to get into doors. That has been really helpful for me. But also, yeah, like art classes were phenomenal. I spent a whole semester like painting in brown because that's what I felt. And uh, made some really beautiful paintings. But also, artists are really creative, and artists are engineers. Like, I still, in order to produce something, if you're a maker, you really are running a small business, and you're engineering the process in order to get that out. And so I think it's old news that there's like a left side and a right side, and you have an artist brain versus an engineer brain. I have met so many engineer artists that I'm starting to think it's the same type of processor.
You just gotta flex your muscles. I think that's what I like about creatives is the thinking. You know, the way you problem solve when it's so cut and dry. It's different than when you're like, why do we have to follow these rules? Just like the way people ask questions when they're creative is totally different. Because when you're the business is, 1 + 1 is 2. So you're trying to figure out why you're not understanding it. Whereas my creative friends are like, why do we have to do it this way? And they're like, oh, okay, that's super helpful. So no, I think that's pretty cool. What was the atmosphere like at Johns Hopkins getting that MBA?
Yeah, I mean, I say all of that like that was a lot. I mean, I think it was great. Like, I was in a program for at that time, Black and Brown folks. It was called the Leadership Development Program for Minority Managers. I'm not a big fan of the term minority, but it was years ago. But anyway, it was fun, but it was also very for people who were not engaged in it full time. And so that felt a little different, I guess, like, to some of the topics that talk about, like moonlighting and being like in and out. I think I found a great community, and that's kind of small subset of people, but I don't know if I really connected as fully to the whole university. I feel like I'm more connected to undergrad as a whole university because it was so submerged in the experience.
Yeah, yeah. I asked because I knew someone who went to I'm gonna mess this up. Viruses. She went to school in both in was it Temple? She went to school in Philly as well as Johns Hopkins. And she told me the atmosphere is insane, and maybe it's because it's a medicine side, but like competitive, untrustworthy. Like she was like, it was hard. And she was the nicest person ever. But I never heard of anything like that, so I just thought it was really interesting. So after that, you said a little bit of Barcelona. When you were done with that, was there a gap after MBA where you relaxed a bit?
So I had a gap before MBA. I had a gap after MBA. Just in terms of career trajectory, I've been in the social sector for, let's say, 20 years now, and I started straight out of undergrad. Right. I jumped right in the workforce, nonprofit sector, answering phones for big education nonprofit, and it was the type of work that I did. Like, I was a bit of an activist in undergrad. So it was the type of work that I did before I graduated. But then I found out that maybe every 2, 3, 4 years, I didn't want to do the thing I was doing anymore. And it did not matter what it was. Like, it didn't matter how vigorously I liked it at the beginning, or a lot of times I was like, oh, it's this job or something's changing. And it was like, oh, it took me a while to, 3 or 4 cycles of that to be like, no, like, you need a real break. So I have right at when I was supposed to go in the height of my career, I think it was like early 30s, and they were offering me all these promotions and stuff. I quit, and I took a year off, and I helped my brother start his own record label, and kind of traveled around the country on a bus going to tours. I did that for a year, and then I consulted while I was off, and then I was like, okay, I probably should go back to work. And then I would go back to work for a few years, and then get tired again and take another break. That's how I ended up in Barcelona. And so I've done that over and over again. And now that I own my business is about 4 years old. I started as a solopreneur, so just by myself, and now it's two full-time employees, two part-time employees, and 20 contractors. 50% in Baltimore, 50% across the country. We've done like 50 engagements with organizations, so it grew scale really quickly. But it's built in such a way that I take a break every summer. Like I'm off for 2 months every summer just because I need that kind of place to recharge and think about not this and think about something else.
When you said every 2 or 3 years, things get old. That's fairly common on this podcast. We do have people who are I've had people who wanted to start a business and did research, and then they were like, based on my numbers, I should do this industry, this business. I've had people have one idea and leave. Overwhelmingly, I have people who can't sit still, and it starts very early. I have people that I grew up with who, including myself, we all had terrible grades at the exam school we went to, but we knew all of the stuff. We just didn't perform well in this specific thing. Uh, People who were good at their great at their careers or jobs, but would just leave or quit. Um, I myself am like you. I can what keeps me at companies is the culture. Even if it's stress, like I've done stressful jobs for a while just because of the people that I'm around. But I get to a natural point where you're like, what else after 2 or 3 years, where it's not even a knock on the company, but you're like, what else? Because you start thinking about your life, and what am I doing? So I could totally understand that. Now, while you're doing that, how did you view was how are you viewing employment? Because I feel like a lot of folks were like, "I just can't be an employee." Was yours about the structure of work? Was it about that? Or was it just, "Nah," like, I was you think was it more personal?
It's very interesting. Like I never really considered myself an entrepreneur. I didn't really know I was an entrepreneur until I started this business. And so I came to it by happenstance. I just wanted to be a consultant, right? Like not be in the box. Had people give me stuff to do, like pay me, right? And so like scaling and building this company is something that was unanticipated, but now I love and I want it to persist. And therefore if I'm not going to leave my own company every 2 or 3 years, I got to build in those breaks to get me, to get fed in that way. Um, but to your question, it was, it was just that like I would get tired.
I hear it. I hear it. What do you miss the least about that life? For me, alright, I would say man. Well, I was living in Boston, before I went completely remote, and I think just being in DC made me go remote. I don't miss that commute that I had in Boston. It started to break me after a while. It got rough. Is there anything that sticks out in your mind about the 9 to 5? You're like, "I just can't do that."
A lot of it, but one well, a lot of it is like somebody else that you have to tell about your time. I just don't know if I ever wanna go back to that. So right now, of course, I have clients, I have commitments, I have responsibilities, but there's no one I need to ask to take time off. Right, no one, and so I don't think I really ever wanna go back to that, even in an unlimited PTO environment, there's, like, no such thing, it's just like, I don't have to ask anybody, but second, in a very, very close, vigorous second, is the commute, like, I spent when I was working 2.5 years commuting back and forth to DC from Baltimore. It would take 3 hours a day on the MARC train, and I almost died. It's like your happiness in life is inversely correlated to the length of your commute. There are actual studies. There are actual studies about that.
That's rough. I didn't start doing it a lot until I did the showcase in Baltimore and just, like, being around my friends a lot. The cities are close, first of all. Second of all, that train should be zipping back and forth, and it doesn't. There are times I've been on that thing for 4 hours because of something random happening. And driving is worse. Like, driving, you're like, "This I should just be able to zoom through this." No. So, oh my gosh, I commend you for doing that. That alone is crazy. It's just so much. So, yes, congratulations on please getting out of that. Now, let's talk about Endeavor. You didn't see yourself as an entrepreneur. I think that's interesting, but I understand it. You yeah, how did it come to be? You were traveling a bit, taking some gaps. What was a click where you were like, because it's one thing to think of the idea, but then you got to like push out and do it.
Yeah, so I hit that kind of so for me, it's not really like 2 or 3 years, it's 4 years when I just gotta go no matter what. And I lied to myself a couple of times in work environments where I was like, oh, if this just changes or that just changes, I'll have some staying power. And it doesn't matter. So I was coming up, or I was in an executive leadership seat at a nonprofit that was really like serving the city and youth engagement and kind of really successful. And I was coming up on that 4 year mark, and I was like, I'm just not going to make it because they were talking about, strategic plans over the years, and it was all like great stuff. But I was like, oh my goodness, this sounded like forever to me. um, and plus, also, like whenever you're in a work environment, especially, I don't know, in the social sector organizations are trying to do some really big, hefty work, right? So it's like environmental causes, it's like anti-racism, it is trying to like save people from, not save people, that's a terrible word, but trying to help people who might be um, have housing scarcity or like food insecurity, things like that. And so you are doing all of that. Anything that you would have to do at another organization, like marketing or operations or anything, also with this kind of meta, in this like meta landscape that's all very, very difficult to manage as a person. And so I found in the social sector a lot of people were like burning out because you would be dealing with all of the day-to-day human stuff associated with it, and also still having to do like the TPS reports. So you still are doing your whatever expense reports. Like you don't get away from that. Um, so I kind of, I needed to a break from all of that and decided. So and I was up against my 4 years anyway. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna stop. I'm gonna stop working. And I'm gonna take a break like I did before, and I'm just gonna be a consultant, right? So you make money and like be on my own and kind of be out there flipping around in the world. Um, So I resigned and, told everybody I was going to go out and went. It was pretty straightforward for me because remember, this is like at this point in my life, this is my third or fourth time. And I think there's always pushback in the world. Like the first time I did it, like I think I don't know, was a senior director of something, and they were trying to promote me to a vice presidentship, and I would be overseeing something to do with healthcare, and I would be getting all these employees and all of that. And I told my family, my stepdad, my grandmother, I was like, I think I'm just not gonna go to work instead. And they had, they thought I lost my mind, and I was like, I'm gonna go work on whatever on the side and help my brother out. So by the time I got to this one, it was kind of normal for me, but you still have world pushback. The world will tell you if you leave this cycle, they're not going to let you back in. If you get off this career trajectory, you're not going to be able to get back in. And that's categorically untrue. Like every time I've gotten off and done something pretty cool, I've been able to come back and get a job almost right away. Just like people want to hear the story. What were you doing for the last year? Like tell me about that. Never had a problem getting back into the work world if I needed to.
Yeah, I respect you saying that because I feel like it becomes a form of golden handcuffs if you're not wholly into something because you can stay in something for a long time or keep going up. And to once you say yes, it's much worse to say yes and not mean it than to say no. Because now, like, we done gave you all these employees and all this stuff. You quit now. It looks crazy. And also, it shows when you're at work. So it's not, I be not really disillusioned, but I started understanding what it meant. And I agree with you. It is, you can always get back in. But I started thinking that, you just get promoted and continue to do things and it's fine. It's fine. You change things from the inside or, keep it. It's not, you just get further. It's like a spiral. You just keep getting further entrenched in this thing that you work at. If you love it, that is amazing. But if you have any, inhibitions about it, you're pausing, you may get to a point where you're like, leave. They're like, whoa, we done gave you, what are you talking about? And then you're in a place where you never want to be in a place where you just don't want to go to work. every single day. So I commend you for being able to recognize that. The name. How'd you come up with the name?
I didn't want to be boxed in. So so I knew I was going to be a consultant. Again, I was all of the stuff that I do.
Wait a second. Endeavor TBD. That's about you. That's about, okay.
You can do whatever you want when you own your own business, right? So, so I knew I was going to be a consultant, kind of, but I didn't quite know what I wanted to consult on. I didn't know what the business was going to be. I was trying to figure out, well, what are my offerings? What do I like to do? For instance, I did a lot of grant writing in the past, so people would call on me for grant writing. I didn't know if I wanted that to, just because you can do it doesn't mean it's something that brings you joy. And so I didn't quite know. And so I kind of refused to have a name that was going to box me in to whatever that was going to be. And so it doesn't even say consulting. And at this point, like, I don't even consider us consultants. So I'm glad I didn't put that in there. I talked to a friend who was a marketer, and she just listened to me talk, and she's like, "Oh, your eyes brightened up when you said endeavor." And so that must be, I was like, oh, you can just have any endeavor that you're working on. I was like, whatever that is. And I was like, well, this is just like, what endeavor is just to be determined? I'm like, who knows? And so I was like, I think that's it. Endeavor TBD. And I've had it on a placard sometimes, like in a room of other businesses, and they really thought it was a placeholder. Like they didn't even know it was the name of the company.
How'd you get your first set of clients? Would you reach to your own network?
Own network. Yep. And so you did ask a question about like whether or not I had any pause going out there. I didn't, but the world paused right after I got out there. I started in January of 2020. I had all of these lunches lined up, like typical, right? Everybody that you know, who you have goodwill with, and their friends. And I had no doubt that I was going to get some contracts doing, HR or talent or grant writing, anything. I like had no doubt. And the whole world shut down and put a lot of real doubt in. And so I didn't get my first contract for like the first six
First of all,
months.
you persevered. We One of our the club's good friends, DJ Aquil, he's based in Minnesota, was a DJ part of a larger faction, went out on his own, COVID, the same January, and made it through. But also that was tough. Um, what were you able to do while COVID's happening? Are you reaching out to folks? Are you Yeah? What kind of work were you able to get done?
I wrote a book. Now, I know a lot of people are like, "Oh my goodness, like I just crawled up in a ball in COVID and I want to hear about the people who actually were able to write a book." Like, but one of my I'm a writer if nothing else. I'm an artist like deep down. And when the world shut down, I found myself with all of this like time and all of this time in the house. And I had thousands and thousands of pages of like short stories and like novels that had never gotten published. And when the world shut down, I was like, I'm gonna write. And so I wrote and enlisted a friend to be like my producer of this book, and I got it out. So I published it in July. It's called on in July of 2020. It's called On Following the Dots, about um, a breakdown in Baltimore, a sojourn in Barcelona, and finding yourself no matter where you are. And so it's just really about a way that I have gone through life. It's like, am I on my dot? Am I in the right place? How do I feel that? How do I know that? And it's a memoir slash, you know, approach to how you get to life. So yeah, I wrote a book. I did more practically. I reached out to friends. Like my very first contract was my little cousin wanted me to design a business card, and I told her it was going to be for free, and the business cards cost like $20, and she paid $30, so I earned $10. Like no joke. Like that was the first, and the universe saw that, and so my very next contract, a friend called and was like, "Hey, there's a client that needs some grant writing, and do you want to do it?" And so that was, a little bit under $1,000. By the end of the year, I had made like 30 grand. By the end of the next year, I had made like 90. So it grew organically, and now we have quite surpassed that over the last like couple of years.
You read first of all, congrats on the book. I got it. I'm gonna grab it. You're very casually accomplished, which I like. I respect it. Like those events you go to where you get a guy like, yeah, man, we totally hit 20 mil the first year. You're like those super intense floats. You're like, all right, I can understand how this guy gets it done. But like you're like, yeah, we do this, 30. I like it because it also I try with this is to prove you don't. There's no archetype. There's no one way of getting it done or a personality type for getting it done. You can find it the way to do it. So congratulations on that. How'd you know when you needed that first employee?
Whew, when I had too much stuff to do. Like just literal, I ended up first. I had like one project, and I had two projects, and I had three, and it was only me. And a friend of mine was like leaving her job, and I remember being like, "Do you do tech stuff? Cause I need some help." She's like, "Sure, I'll try," and I was like, "Let's go." Right. So I ran out of individual bandwidth. The other thing too is like I have an operations firm. I'm an operator. Like I have been running the insides of businesses for years. And so I understand what is infrastructure, like what are compliance needs, what do you do to scale, strategic planning, right? That's where I came from in other people's businesses. And so I was putting infrastructure in for Endeavor before we even had a name. I had a project management system when it was just me. I was writing SOPs, standard operating procedures when it was just me, right? Because I know that that's what you need to scale. So as soon as that other person came in, it was very easy for me to break off parts and pieces and give it to them because I had already started to systemize as if I was a bigger business
Yeah.
when I was just one person.
I respect it. That's what I like the most about doing this. Like when I have done the stuff we're doing, if I'm like, all right, we need to find clients one day, showcases, the step by step. I love putting together the step by step in the meaning of things. Like when this happens, give them this piece of paper, give them that contract, sign it. It interests me a lot. It really interests me. So that's cool that you had that. How do you like having employees?
I like it. I mean, for the most part, like there are not that many employees, so we're really slim practice. Everybody, the 20 contractors, they're 1099s. If anybody is out there listening in terms of like how you want to structure your entities, um, the one of my like key employees just happens to be my sister, so that's nice. And no joke, like we didn't start it as a family business. I don't necessarily consider it a family business. She was doing something else. I ran out of bandwidth again. I was like, somebody's got to help me do this internal stuff with all of our figures and facts and compliance. And I'm like, I trust you. You look like you got this part-time job over there. You got these nieces and nephews who climb on your face all the time, and I know you don't want to go out and do a big real job. Like, come help me. Come help me. And that was a couple years ago, but now, like, I know one of your questions is like, do you have imposter syndrome? Because now I say it sometimes. I'm like, no, we're like a real business. It's not just me and my sister. It's like a several $100,000 a year business, right? Like operating it together. So uh, I'm like, yeah, I started with my sister, but now she's like business manager. Like she's on me.
Have you ever felt any kind of imposter syndrome? Because you've been to a bunch of different places. You've been in I mean, from Stanford to just leaving the country to Johns Hopkins to working at different nonprofits. Have you ever been felt uncomfortable in those places, or yeah,
Every day, yeah. I mean, I think that at this point, I think it's normal. I think I'm just growing out of it. Got over middle age. I'm just over middle age now. Like I'm just understanding that everybody feels like that, and I think that that's the thing that wears it away is that everybody feels like that. Years ago, though, you show up and you're like, how did I get in here? There were so many rooms that I got into that I was like, how did I get in here? They're gonna catch me. That's what I just always felt like. they're, gonna, they're gonna catch me. They're gonna find out that I don't know. I'm just a kid from wherever, not belonging. But there are But no, I don't really feel like that anymore. I feel like I can like walk about in any room, and what I don't know, I don't know, and that's all that people all that's all people really want, right? That's I think that's the hallmark of being kind of smart is knowing when you're not smart.
Yeah,
Like,
you gotta keep it real. That's I'll give Cobra folks that. You gotta know when to be able to say no, and I have no idea what I don't know. Because when you I've tried this. When you try to just over talk your way into a yes or something, people are like, "What are you talking about? Just say no." You're like, "All right. All right, I will."
I tell you, and the most powerful marketing that because you made me think of something has been when I have said no. As an early entrepreneur, you think that you have to say yes, and you think you're going to close down. But when I've said, that's not really yes. Like I don't do that. Almost the next question is always, well, what do you do? And then I have seen business come back around from those no conversations because then when they find that thing, if they like you, and then they're like, oh, this is the type of thing that Delshan or Endeavor does, and then they call you about that thing.
Yeah, I like it. I respect it. It's good. I'm glad to see you all doing really well. Uh, do you have a you have your own plan for every 3 or 4 years? What about for Endeavor? Is there a metamorphosis on the way? Do you ever think of it in terms of, maybe we could shift to do something in 3 or 4 years? Or do you kind of just take things as they come?
I want to say yes, we do have a plan. I'm a planner, right? And also, we make operational plans for other people. So, how do you get from your vision to actually putting it on the ground? We do stuff like we're implementers, so that's why we're not consultants. Like we implement stuff, and so it's not really the type of business that we wouldn't have a plan for ourselves. Right. So of course, like I got a 3-year plan, I've got like quarterly metrics, I've got a strategic meeting that we have and we run through all of those. I have business advisor that helps to push the envelope. Uh, but to your question is like I don't think we want to do anything necessarily new. I think we want to get broad. I think we want to get broader and deeper. I think we want to work with more socially vested organizations. We want to work with cool companies doing cool stuff. Trying to benefit the world, either the small world or the big world, right? You just trying to, help your family that's traditionally marginalized. That's good. That's good enough for us. You just can't be about, I want to make a lot of money. Like somebody else can help you.
Yeah, I feel you. Yeah. Do you have what advice, if any, you could give to someone who is working, employed, moonlighting, trying to start a business? Is there it doesn't have to be one thing, but does anything stick on your head? Like, man, if I would have known this, or if there's something I could tell people, it's this when we're in this world.
Yes. The one big thing is like you absolutely can. I remember there's a woman from school, Asmahan. She took off went in her 20s and traveled the world and went to every single continent
Mm,
in her 20s. And I remember seeing her at a reunion and being like, how you do that? I can't do that. And she said, yes, you can. And she's like, you just have to make a plan and you have to do it. She told me how she did it, but she's like, yes, you can. And that changed, I'm telling you, that changed so much my perspective because as soon as you turn your I wish I coulds into cans, then your cans can turn into hows. And
mm,
Endeavor is all about how. So we're like, as soon as you're answering the question, like, how do I do that? You're on your way.
mm. Okay.
In a year after that, I was on break after she told me I could. Because I was like, well, if I can, then how?
Yeah, I like it. I like it. Once the cans become housed and we're in business. All right. Well, yeah, I appreciate this. I appreciate your time and wisdom. Now I want to travel again. Um, what's your favorite? Do you have a favorite city, country, place on earth?
I love Barcelona. I mean, because I was there, I met the expatriate community, a lot of people who had left their lives for whatever reason, and they were there, playing guitar, like teaching English or doing whatever. And they had a really tight knit community of people who found something different in a country that was, different than the one that they originated in. It's very, very pretty. Um, but I've been to China and Vietnam and Alaska and London and Paris and all over the US. I like I mean I like it all. I want to go out and like see stuff. I want to touch stuff. I want to push buttons. So just part of like get out in the world. The other thing I will say to people is people are like, "Oh, I can't go here. I can't go there." And I'm like, "I went to Costa Rica for the same cost of a ticket that people go to Florida. Like you think you can't go, but you can. So yeah, I like them all because I want to see the world.
Yeah. One place I'll suggest. I love Vietnam. Uh, Scandinavia, Oslo is probably my favorite city as of right now. I could go back right now forever. It was so clean and just it was great. Oslo was great. We went to Stockholm and Copenhagen, but Oslo was the one that sticks out. I was like, yeah, I gotta get back to this place now. Um, but I like what you're. I like this. I like the way of thinking of. No, it can just figure out. Just first, you do have to say it can happen because it's really easy to psych yourself out. And I like that. Oh my gosh, this has been good. This has been really. Usually these talks are pretty invigorating. This one's really. It's hitting that way too. It's Baltimore. It's something in the water there. Everyone we talk to, it's really exceptional. Is there anything that you'd like to shout out or plug? Anything on your mind?
Um, I I thought of Anna Rodney during this call. She's with Moms Cares, and she just says, you want a real yes from me when you ask me about yes, and that plays in my head. So anytime I think about somebody, I want to like bring their name in the room, right? I do kind of want to shout out the Women Entrepreneurs Leadership Lab is a circle of Black women business owners, and I'm a member and ambassador. It's my favorite place to be because we really support each other in terms of like our trajectory, both personally and professionally. Uh, who else? I could shout out. I mean, I could be here forever, like
Keep doing it.
shouting
Keep
out
shout, shout,
folks.
shout out everyone in Baltimore. Yeah.
Yeah, shout out. We got like really good clients. Upsurge Baltimore, I really appreciate them. We've been working with them for almost 3 years now. So I really appreciate their support.
Upsurge is great. I feel like that we discussed this when we first met. What was that was for? Oh my gosh,
Innovation
In-
Works was,
Innovation
yeah.
Works today. Yeah, it was their anniversary. That was awesome. But Baltimore is a lot, and I've been telling folks, man, there's a lot of good there. And what I love about it is people do give back to the people. People they strive to make the city a better place, and it shows, which I think is really really cool. So, thank you for that, and thank you for your time. This has been really cool.
All right. All right. Thank you so much. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Well, of course, and everyone who's listening, Endeavor TBD. Well, that's such a great name. We thank you for your time. Thank you for joining us for another Moonlighters Club, and we'll see you soon.